September 1942, 11:47 p.m. A blackout curtained drawing office deep inside the Ministry of Supply, Westminster, London. Rain hammered the windows like distant artillery. The only light came from a green-shaded desk lamp that threw long shadows across rolls of blueprints and half-empty teacups. British civil engineer Hugh Eoris Hughes sat alone, collar unbuttoned, sleeves rolled to his elbows, staring at the latest intelligence photographs spread across his desk. The images were still warm from the developing tray, grainy black and white shots of the Dieppe raid taken just weeks earlier. You can almost smell the acrid developer fluid and the damp wool of his jacket. Hughes had not slept properly since the cables arrived from the Channel. Nearly 5,000 Canadian and British troops had stormed that French port in broad daylight, expecting to seize its docks intact. Instead, they were cut to pieces on the beach. Tanks burned in the surf. Men drowned under the weight of their own packs. The Germans had simply waited behind reinforced concrete and mowed them down. No port captured, no supplies landed, just bodies rolling in the tide. Hughes rubbed his eyes, raw from cigarette smoke and exhaustion. He knew the numbers better than anyone in Whitehall. Operation Overlord, the planned return to France, was already on the drawing board. 5 beaches in Normandy, no natural harbors deep enough for ocean-going ships. Cherbourg and Le Havre were 40 miles away, heavily fortified, and the planners kept repeating the same suicidal promise: we'll take a real port within 2 weeks. 2 weeks. The words tasted like ash. Hughes had run the calculations himself, late at night when the rest of the ministry had gone home. An invading army of 2 million men would need 20,000 tons of supplies every single day just to stay alive. Bullets, K-rations, fuel for 10,000 tanks and trucks, medical stores, spare parts. Without a sheltered deep-water dock, every crate would have to be ferried ashore in flat-bottomed landing craft that could only touch sand at high tide. One gale, one German counterattack, and the entire force would be stranded like beached whales while panzers rolled down from the hills. He stood up, walked to the wall map, and traced Normandy's coastline with a blunt finger. Smooth, open beaches, no cliffs to hide behind, no breakwaters, just sand and surf and Hitler's Atlantic Wall staring straight at them. The Germans knew it too. Rommel was already planting millions of mines and steel obstacles designed to rip the bottoms out of anything that tried to land. Hughes felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders like wet sand. He could picture the future as clearly as if he was standing on Omaha Beach in June 1944. Thousands of ships anchored offshore, their decks loaded with the lifeblood of the invasion, while smaller boats shuttled back and forth in a deadly game of tag with the weather. A single storm could wreck the entire timetable. The Allies would drown not in blood, but in their own logistics. He turned back to his desk, heart pounding with something sharper than fear: anger. The generals called it impossible. The admirals called it madness. But Hughes was a civil engineer, not a soldier. He built things that refused to obey the sea. Bridges over rivers that should have swallowed them. Dams that held back floods no one believed could be tamed. And right then, in the dead quiet of that rain-lashed office, the impossible began to take shape in his mind. What if you didn't capture a port? What if you brought the port with you? His hand moved almost by itself, reaching for a fresh sheet of drafting paper. He sketched a single concrete box the size of a destroyer, hollow, massive, designed to be towed across the channel like a barge. Sink it in the right place, and it would form an instant breakwater. Link dozens of them together, and you could create a sheltered lagoon where ships could unload in any weather. Add floating roadways that rose and fell with the tide, and suddenly you had cranes, warehouses, a living, breathing harbor appearing overnight where none had existed before.
The pencil scratched faster. The wind outside howled louder, as if the channel itself were mocking him. 100 miles of open, storm-tossed sea, towed by tugs under the noses of German E-boats and Luftwaffe reconnaissance planes. The whole thing would have to be built in total secrecy, tested in hidden coves, then disassembled and hidden again until D-Day. It was lunatic. It was colossal. It would require millions of tons of concrete and steel that Britain could barely spare. And yet, Hughes stepped back from the drawing, his breath caught. For the first time in months, the map on the wall didn't look like a death sentence. It looked like a challenge. But the real question burned in the silence. Could one man's mad sketch survive the scrutiny of generals, admirals, and the cold eye of Winston Churchill himself? He didn't know it yet, but the tide of the war was about to turn on a floating dream that had not even been named.